Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary.
Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day and have figured out what attachment style you are, what attachment style your partner is, and how you can go and work together to go and feel safe, right? As Dr. Seiler says, it's all about how you feel. Now, before I tell you about today's guest, you might want to stop and head over to YouTube because, yes, we have finally listened to your request and we are putting the episodes up on YouTube. So if you like watching instead of listening, as long as you're not driving, head over to YouTube, go and see the interaction, see the energy, and you'll get to see my facial expressions because apparently I cannot hide them. They're just written all over my face. So you will get to see what it looks like while I'm talking naturally. Today's guest I met when I was a guest on her podcast, The Confident, Energized, and Sexy Mama. I know I'm not a mom, but I got a chance to be on this podcast and I had such a fun time. I loved her energy. I loved what she did that I was like, I need to have Dorit Palvanov on the podcast. Thank you so much, Dorit, for being here. You want to start by telling us in one sentence exactly what you do.
Awesome, Dorit. I am so excited to speak with you again because I had such a fun time speaking to you last time. So I'm really excited for now. You want to tell us in like one sentence what you do?
Ooh, I love that. My elevator pitch. I help women to live within their flow, just to find their flow and rhythm of their life. That's really, in one line, that's what I do.
I like that. Now, when you tell people living in their flow, what do you mean?
So for me, obviously, it's so tied to my own story and to my own experience. When I say women, I actually mean women who are wives, who are mothers, women who have some sort of responsibility that requires them to take care of others. It can be that you're taking care of elders, because right off the bat, what's happening there is because of our conditioning as women, we are taught to take care of everybody else, to prioritize everybody else. We are taught to use guilt and shame and sacrifice as a motivator, right? So many of us feel so bad about ourselves when we say no to certain things, or when we didn't give, or we weren't able to provide or to do something that somebody else requires of us but feels like out of alignment for us. And so a lot of women feel in that constant feeling of resistance and just struggle. And I call it living in having this, almost like having the life sucked out of you. What happens over time when we as women, and I definitely lived in that feeling for way too long, what happens when we live in that zone for too long is resentment starts to build up. Also, health issues starting to be manifest. For me, one day I was 33 years old. I found myself overweight, exhausted, burnt out. My hairline was fading. I started having wrinkles. I felt I was sexless. I was a shell of a woman, and I didn't love my life. And I remember that moment because I had to be really clear with where I'm going with this, because at that time, it was already a decade after I got married, and I had 3 daughters. And so the fact that, yes, I was a mom, so I'm raising children, but not only that, I'm also raising daughters and girls and women. And I myself come from a family of women. My mom also had 3 girls. I am the oldest. And so I just had to just kind of like push a huge, gigantic, enormous pause on life and to figure this out, because I did not want to pass on a baton of suffering, of self-negligence, of sacrifice, of mom guilt, mom shame. Like, what are we doing? Passing that on, I wanted to be able to get to the day when I don't know, if my daughters decide to get married, I wanted to be there on that day and look in her eyes and have, and just know that she's ready and she's got this, right? She's empowered. When I got married, it's so funny because I'm just going to be, next week, I'm going to be delivering a speech about my story. When I got married, I was actually petrified. I mean, I wanted to get married. I love my husband so much. I wanted that dreamy fantasy. But I was so afraid that I knew nothing about how to do this right. In fact, for me, the only story I knew is the story that I had seen and witnessed at home with my mom, with my grandmothers. And that was a story of sacrifice. That was a story of depression. That was a story of women basically giving every bit of themselves for everybody else, and nothing else is left for them. So that's not what I wanted for myself, and I definitely didn't want it for my girls. So that's what it means. It helps. What I do is I help women connect with themselves through finding their flow. And when I say flow, what I actually mean is connecting to the thing that we as females all have. That's the one thing we all have in mutual, that is mutual to all of us, is the menstrual cycle. And people, we are not taught to see the menstrual cycle as a power. We are taught to see it as a weakness or as a curse or as something that is disgusting. Where in fact, when you actually learn to understand the energy of the menstrual cycle, the hormones of the influxes of the menstrual cycle, you understand that there is a way for you to eat. There's a way for you to move your body. There's a way for you to socialize with the world. And we're going to talk about relationships today. So this is where this fits under that category. And there's a way for you to find your rhythm in a way that helps you to feel a sustainable life, as opposed to a life where you are not enjoying every day.
Wow. Yeah. So when you had this day when you were like, oh my goodness, what is going on in my life? And you're making changes. What did your husband think of this?
Oh, such a good question. Obviously, we understand that as women, we have a lot of power. I think every single human being understands that, right? That as women, we are the ones who create the ecosystem of our home, both energetically, but also, what we, am I going to cook meals, or am I going to buy meals? Am I going to be a working mom, or am I going to be a stay-at-home mom? Like, there are very different choices that we make as women that are going to affect and have impact on the people who live in our home. Of course, it's going to have impact on our children, and it's going to also have an impact on our marriages. So really, it's finding the why, or the vision. What do I want to create? How do I want to live? I grew up in a family where my parents definitely love each other. I know to this day they adore each other. However, they didn't really know how to connect, and they didn't feel like they were vulnerable with each other. And that's something I definitely wanted for myself. And so from the very beginning, we actually, before even having kids, we started going to like marriage classes. And so we got a little bit of training. So my husband, he was heartbroken. He was just completely shattered. He was very disappointed in the fact that, he really struggled to see me like this. Because, when we're fresh and we're just getting ready to start our lives together, how there are like promises and expectations. And I was always very bubbly and energetic and just fun. I was fun. And that's what he signed up for. But that day when I found myself 33 years old, exhausted, overwhelmed, burnt out, sexless, not fun, not happy. And there is this, what I'm finding with men, when I work with women, is in most cases, these men are really good. They're supportive. They're such good, just amazing, incredible men. But something happens in the communication, in the way we relate to them. And I think one of the best, I think, pieces of advice that I received, and that I learned that through my podcast and through interviewing my gurus and my mentors, was the importance of understanding that as a woman, you are the one who your men responds to. So men respond to women. So it's not to say that all the responsibility is yours and it's all your fault. That's not what I'm saying. Please, ladies and men and guys too, understand this is not what I'm saying. However, as women, we need to understand that we do have a responsibility. And so my husband really, he is amazing. He was always amazing. And I hope he will always stay amazing. However, when I was responding in resentment and anger and outbursts and yelling and just feeling like I'm not being myself, obviously he translated it as though he is not providing for me something that I need. So he did feel like it was his fault, because I guess we are conditioned as men that it's it's their job as the men to provide and to make sure that their wife is happy. Which, listen,
and I think it's not only with men, that's even with kids, right? Like kids feel if their parents divorce, then it's their responsibility that their parents divorce. Yes. So it happens with everything.
It happens, exactly. And so, yeah, he was upset. He was also pissed off, like, to be totally honest. And that was one of my biggest catalysts to change, because I love my husband. I got married, and when I got married, I remember vowing to myself that this is for life. Like, I wanted to stay married to this man because I truly love him and we are so good together. So I just really didn't have any choice but to change, because the old narrative, the narrative I was playing out, it just didn't work. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for us. It didn't work for him. It didn't work for our kids. So we had to change. It's a journey. It's definitely a journey. And now to answer the second question, once I've learned how to find my power, how to connect with myself, how to find my center, then what happens as women, we begin to understand ourselves better, then we have the narrative and we have the tools to teach, the people in our lives how to support us, because they want to support. And men, especially for the men listening, men love frameworks. Men love structure. Men thrive off of order, right? Just show me the way and I'll do it. And I was just bitter. I was just upset. I was just resentful. I was just angry. And when I started to understand that, that I have 4 phases to my monthly flow and my energy changes because my hormones change. He used to believe that as, women, and I guess it's just like it's a stigma that women have, unfortunately, that I was either normal or I was constantly in PMS. So I'm like I'm either this or that, 2 things. And it's so wrong, because as women, we actually have 4 phases, not 2. So when I understood that, then I could say, no, honey, yes, my energy is very low right now. So I need you to step up and step in. So I need you to help me, loading the dishwasher. I need you to pick up the kids from school. I need you to put the kids to bed. And I need to be able to just be by myself, right? So it's a more kind of like empowered approach, as opposed to, I'm so sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like living in that smallness, which so many women unfortunately live in. And what breaks my heart is that in the midst of that, we are raising the next generation. And so they see us being small and insecure and unconfident and just like, and it's just, you need to understand, apples don't fall too far from the tree. It's so true, which is why, yes, all of our children are going to be a little bit better than us. Yes, it's true. That's how we're built in. But what if we can give them the tools to be amazing, right? To be who they're supposed to be. They don't have to repeat our narrative. So that's my answer to your question. It definitely, first and foremost, it begins with me, with the woman who reclaims her joy, who reclaims her sense of worth, her right for happiness and joy and well-being and time alone. And then we enroll our family members, our loved ones, into our health mission. That's
awesome. Okay, now you want to tell us about the 4 phases, how it affects our life, and how it affects our relationship.
Yes. So there are 4 phases. I'm not going to use them by names, but I'm just going to quickly, there's so much to say, but as a society, we've been taught that the menstrual cycle is basically the bleed, right? The bloody withdrawal that we have every month. And we're taught that this is the main event, and it's not. The main event of the menstrual cycle is actually ovulation. That's the whole point of the whole cycle, is to get you ovulating and then pregnant, right? Menstruation is when that cycle culminates. That's when it finishes off. You're not pregnant, so that uterine lining is being shed off, and it's like a death and rebirth every single month. And so the 4 phases are basically, there's a practice that I teach my clients. It's called MCA, menstrual cycle awareness. And basically what that is, in simple terms, is to start living your life from a place where you're constantly aware of where you are in your cycle. Meaning you're going to have to start tracking your cycle. You're going to have to start, paying attention to the days, which day of your cycle you're in. Day 1 of your cycle is the first day of your heavy bleed. That's going to be day number 1, and so on and so forth. Okay? So the first phase of the cycle, of the flow, is actually the day 6. It begins around day 6 of your cycle. So you finish the bleed, and so that's when you're starting to kind of like get your energy back. And I always love to talk about the menstrual cycle and the phases in terms of seasons. So it's like your seasons of energy. The season of the first phase, it's the season of spring. So that's when, you're just like emerging back into life. You're getting like tingles of excitement. You're starting to get your energy back slowly. And how you eat, how you move, how you socialize, all of those things, they have to shift with you. As opposed to if you stay constant, like a man, right? Men don't have these influxes. They do have a cycle, but they cycle in 24 hours. Their cycle culminates every 24 hours. Our cycle culminates every roughly, on average, 28 days. Meaning we cannot compare ourselves to men. We should not be living our lives as men. And there is nothing wrong with being different. Difference doesn't imply inferiority, right? So we are just different, and we were built and designed like so by the Creator, and there is a reason for that. So when you understand that, let's say in terms of relationship, you know that your energy is starting to pick back up in the first phase. That is the time when and obviously your partner, your kids, your entire household will know, because you are going to teach them how this works. So they know that this is the time when mommy can plan their birthday parties. That's when mommy can host. That's when, it's a good idea to have date nights, because you're going to have the energy. Your body is going to support you in that. And so you definitely, kind of like organize your life in alignment with that.
So your whole family runs based on the mother cycle.
Totally. Yes. And isn't that cool? And I have to say, my family in the beginning, my husband he's like, yes, I love that. Finally. My kids, especially, I don't know, maybe it's because they're girls. they resisted that in the beginning, like there's no tomorrow. No, I'm not going to follow that.
How old were they when this started?
So my oldest is 11, my middle daughter is 9, and my youngest is 4. So it started, let's say I really started honing in about a couple of years ago.
So how do you teach it to them in a way that's like age appropriate?
Well,
what do you tell them?
I just tell them just the way it is. I mean, they're girls. In my case, I don't have boys. So they're girls. They eventually, God willing, they will have that too. So I want to normalize that conversation. I wanted them to see that it's totally normal. This is how you do it, right? This is part of the empowerment of it. And then I also want to give them a sense of how it feels when there is a sense of flow in our home, right? As opposed to mommy is always angry, daddy and mommy are fighting. And like, because I grew up like that, unfortunately. I wanted them to understand that it's okay to be tired. It's okay to be, low energy. You just have to understand it and then advocate for yourself, or like do something about it, as opposed to just complaining and feel like, crap. So anyways, that's the first phase. Okay. The next phase, the second phase, is the phase of ovulation. That is the phase when your energy, so the first phase and the third phase, okay, so if you think about this, the 4 phases of the cycle, you can kind of imagine a circle, and there's going to be the first and the third, just like a clock, right? The first and the third are going to be facing each other, and the second and the fourth phase are also facing in one another, right? So it's like parallels. So if you think about ovulation and menstruation, they're going to be facing, each other. Exactly. Because also energetically, this is like when we are so different. It's almost like the feminine versus masculine energy. When we menstruate, that's when we are the most in our feminine energy, when we allow it, that's important. And ovulatory phase, that's when we are the most in our masculine. So that's the time, you think about it in terms of seasons, that's summer. That's the time when your transitional period, so the first phase is the transitional period between menstruation to ovulation. So your energy is slowly going to to go up until it reaches its peak in ovulation. So that is full bloom. If you're thinking about summer, right? Full bloom. That's when you have the most energy. I remember myself, like, this is the time I wanted to be in all the time. And that's where we drive as women. That's where we drive ourselves crazy, because we have those moments in the month. And then in one day, there is a shift that happens between the ovulatory phase and the next phase, which is called the luteal phase. And that's the third phase. And that's the shift between ovulation to menstruation. It happens almost overnight. From this happy, jolly Mary Poppins, you shift into Cruella de Vil. It's like we are all of a sudden not so nice anymore, not so powerful anymore. Our energy is like, because we fool ourselves into believing that we are invincible and we can do it all. Definitely, you can do it all when you are in ovulation. Your family will feel that, because you all of a sudden have this rush of energy. You can do the laundry, you can do the dishes, you can cook the meal, you can work 8-hour days, like you can even work longer. You just have the energy and the stamina for all of that. Your body will support you in that. And that happens because of hormonally, what happens is you have the highest rate of estrogen pumped into your blood flow. That's the reason why it happens. And the reason why it shifts, after you get out of ovulation, it shifts overnight from ovulation into the luteal phase, from the second phase into the third phase, because estrogen starts to drop and progesterone kicks in. So that shift in hormones, energetically, it feels different. So we need to be proactive. We need to be super intelligent and smart and understand, okay, this is part of my design. Hello. All right. So I'm going to make sure that I've asked a friend, maybe, a carpool lady or a man, or my husband or my mother-in-law, or whoever it is, to maybe pick up the kids from school. I'm not going to plan their birthday parties to this time. I'm not going to plan vacations during this period of time because mommy is not nice. Mommy is very short-tempered. This is when and not only mommy, I mean, women, and maybe this sounds familiar to you. This is when we could feel really agitated and irritable and short-tempered. We're kind of like straight to the point. If you think about this in terms of the seasons, that is the season of fall. This is the season of autumn. You become more kind of like serious. Your brain will help you to be more analytical. So you can definitely do more things that are, to crunch some numbers, to go, like if you have a business, like for example, and you need to go over numbers and make hard decisions, this is a great time for that. By the way, the phase that is parallel to that, so the first phase is not a good time to make hard decisions, because your energetically, you're just not, your body, your brain, your hormones, you're not going to be supported to make a difficult decision. So I always recommend women to kind of like just wait until you get to that phase, because you're going to have the most resources to handle that tough situation, whatever it is, right? So that's the third phase. And then the fourth phase is menstruation. So that's when your energy changes. This is when your energy is the lowest. What happens physically in our brain is that our right and left hemispheres, and I know you talk about the brain a lot, Esti, the brain, the right and left hemispheres kind of slightly separate. And what that does, it helps us, it gives us a deeper door into our soul. So it's a great time for reflections. It's a great time to pause on life. It's a great time for retreating. It's a great time to, even if you can't leave your home, just close the bedroom door and just stay with yourself. It's okay. That's actually how it's supposed to be. So mamas, women, ladies, give yourself the permission to do that. Your children don't need you all the time. Actually, it's healthier for them, for you to leave for a few days, right? It's not like you're completely leaving. If you want, fine, you can do that. But I mean, I don't have the luxury of leaving for a vacation every month. But I do that in a way that they see how I close the door. And when they knock on the door, or when they, just come into my bedroom, I'm like, no, mommy needs alone time. Mommy needs alone time, right? So they're learning that it's okay for me, because once I emerge from that, that's how I will be a nicer person. And I want to be, and you deserve that treatment, but I need that time for myself. So it's a lifestyle shift. You really need him to support you. So you draw a circle, the 4 phases, and then you tell him why you have 4 phases. So you're going to talk to him a little bit about, men love data. Love it. So you're going to talk about the biology behind it. You're going to talk a little bit about the hormones. You're going to talk about estrogen, progesterone, so that they understand why, right? So you're not, again, men are conditioned to believe deep down inside, even if it's the best, even if you're coupled with the best man on earth, deep down inside, and believe me, I've spoken to hundreds of men, deep down inside, every man is conditioned to believe that women are a little crazy. It's very sad, but that's the world we live in. So it's your job to teach him, no, I'm not crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. This is what's happening, right? This is what's happening. And this is why I need you to support me. And this is how I need you to support me, right? So based on your lifestyle, for me, for example, as a mom, the best way he can support me is with the kids, because that requires the most, energy out of me. So I make sure, that when I plan for it, I ask him, honey, I need you to take the kids from school today. Can you do that? If not, sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. So I would ask my sister, or ask my mom, or ask I ask somebody at school. Like, I plan for it. I'm proactive about it. And when it's the end of the day, I can still be okay in the morning, but I make sure that he knows that in the evening, once the clock hits 6 o'clock, that's it. Like I'm starting to fade away. And so it took a little bit of like process for him to like get it, because yes, there was still, shame and guilt and a little bit of like, why are you so lazy? Yes, it was in the beginning, but now we've reached a point where he looks at me and he sees it and he's like, Dorit, I got this. You can go upstairs. I'll take care of it. Right? So that is the power of it, right? So that I don't have to constantly feel like I'm pushing water against, upwards. Life is meant to feel joyful, but it's just that we are not taught how to reap the benefits of our energy influxes. And then as women, when we understand that men respond to us, and we do have that responsibility to understand ourselves and then also teach them and educate them to support us, that's when the power is. This is gold, because you are giving him, for not only am I teaching him how to support me, I'm teaching him also to understand our daughters and to support our daughters. And also other women in his life. It's such a funny story, by the way. My husband, he owns a web agency. And so most of his clients are actually women. And so now he knows, tell me, I know she's in the fourth phase. Like he just sees the difference, right? Because men see it. Because we live it, it's hard for us to really like know how it feels. But people who are mirroring us, they know the difference, right? When you are like in your woohoo, as opposed to like leave me alone, right? They know how to feel it. They see that you're slower to respond, to react. You're just slower. And I think there's so much power in women owning their power.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge that couples have when they start doing this?
Okay. So the number one challenge, I think it's really letting go of conditioning, letting go of the cultural programming, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is the
literally like
one.
Unlearn everything so you could relearn everything.
Yes. So that you can relearn what you need for the life that you want, right? So again, it's this baton that is being passed. And this baton is being passed not only to girls, it's also definitely being passed on to boys. And those ideas are very, very sticky, and they're very, very subtle. And it requires, there is a reason why our menstrual cycle, the 4 phases, are on repeat for, 20, 25, 30 years. There is a reason for that, because it is not meant, this life and rebirth, the death and rebirth, it's not meant to be lived as a one-time experience. It's an evolving journey, right? So you're constantly learning and evolving and growing. And the same is true with our relationship with our partners, right? So in the beginning, yes, I think this is the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle for couples to overcome. But the more you do it, the more you'll be able to help him to understand that it's actually a thing, right? That you actually mean it, that it's actually happening. So for example, in my situation, because I actually created the system, I didn't have anybody to follow. I created it, so it took me longer. But if this is something that you want to learn, you can just, take my course and you're going to have the worksheets and you're going to have the PDFs and all the tools that you need to have a conversation with him. It's all laid out for you. My husband doesn't refer to my phases as, menstruation or luteal or ovulation. Like he doesn't talk about it like that. He refers to them as flags. He resonates more with colors and flags. So he would say, oh, she's in the red flag, or she's in the red zone, or she's in the blue zone, right? Or the green zone. So he now started to slowly kind of like come to acknowledging it and really seeing the value in it. And you know what's interesting, Esty? Every single man I've spoken to about this, they just like, they get it. They get it. It's men who are receptive and accept and are ready to accept it. It's
they have a way to deal with their wives.
Right. Because men want peace. They just want peace. It is us women who resist it. I had this conversation with a woman who actually, when we were diving deep and deep and deep, and she said, I don't want to. I hate my period. So why on earth would I build my whole life around it? That's the problem. Because we are taught to believe that menstruation is weakness. We are taught to believe that, the fact that we have the monthly bleed it makes us somehow less than, and the men better than us because they don't have to deal with it. It's such a mistake. And believe me, whether you are aware of it or not, it is going to bite you in the butt. It is going to bite you. So I think it's better for you to understand how this works sooner than later, so that you can first see the power of it for yourself, so you can start taking better care of yourself, and then so you can create relationships that are supportive, as opposed to having that underlying beliefs that there is something inherently wrong with women all around them. It's a difficult thing. If I have to pick the number one thing that is going to be triggered, it's this conditioning. So many men would say, but I don't understand. My mom did it. My grandmother did it. Like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you do it? Right? I've heard this so many times from my clients. And my husband said it too. And then I say, okay, you're right. Now let's look at these women and let's see. Is she happy? Is she thriving? How is her weight? Is she happy with her life? Is she orgasming? What do you think? Right? And he would almost always say, no. Right?
I know.
Right? So yes, you can do it all, but there's going to be a cost. Is this a cost you're willing to pay? For me, that was a cost of my joy. That was a cost for my time. And I didn't want to pay that because I was clear with him. First of all, I didn't know that this is how it's going to feel. And second, I said, I don't want to raise my children to believe that this is normal. This is not normal. We have to stop normalizing burnout. We have to stop normalizing busy and hustle. It's not normal. This is not how we were built, right? So we have to stop normalizing and perpetuating this race to where? I don't want to live my life, to have the things that the Joneses have. No, I want to have the things that I want to have. But in order to do that, I need to slow down and I need to create space to be quiet so that I can connect to what matters to me and to my family.
Oh, yeah. Now, so is there any specific thing you could tell to women more than the men of how they could get out of this conditioning and belief so it's easier for them to accept this?
Start learning about your menstrual cycle. Mm-hmm. That's it. If you like, numbers, if you like science, there are hundreds of thousands of books written on the topic. I'm going to recommend some books. So one of my favorite books is Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom by Dr. Christiane Northrup. I think this is a Bible for females. Every woman has to have this book. The second book is that I recommend. It's called The Woman's Code. Great. It's by Alisa Vitti. Also, she talks about the 4 phases. The Fifth Vital Sign by Lisa Hendrickson-Jack. Lisa was actually a guest on my podcast as well. She talks about the menstrual cycle as the 5th vital sign for women, and how when you begin charting your cycle and you actually start, mapping it out, you start measuring your temperature, you start monitoring your cervical mucus and the positioning of your cervix. Like, these are the tools that we need to know. Each woman needs to know, because if you think about it, traditionally, we've been taught that we are fertile every single day of the month. And it's such a mistake. We are actually only fertile, we can get pregnant, only during a period of 24 hours. It's the sperm that can stay alive for 5 days in our body. But if we know that pregnancy is only possible for one full day of the month, why on earth are we putting girls on birth control pills? Why are we teaching girls to hate their menstrual cycle so much, or to just have this like aversion reaction to it? No, this is our power. We don't need to be so afraid of it. This is our it's like it's like denying our basic built as humans, right? It's like denying a hand or a limb or your ears or your eyes. Like, this is how you're built. Just accept it. It's here to stay. It's not going away. This is how we were designed. So number one, educate yourself about your menstrual cycle.
Oh yeah.
And then the second thing I would say is really start living your life kind of like in reverse engineer, right? So it's not first everybody else and then me. No, it's first me and then everybody else. And that also is the hardest thing to do for a woman, again, because of the conditioning, because of the cultural programming that, no, as a woman, you have to sacrifice, you need to be march a drum. And I mean, it's all over our scripture. It's everywhere. I would say those are the two things. Be willing to just put the conditioning away and also educate yourself on the topic.
Okay, last question. How would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using the word love, intimacy, and connection?
Great sex.
2 words. That's it.
That's it.
That is awesome.
Sex, sex doesn't begin in the bedroom. If you have great sex, that means that all the other areas are well taken care of. So when you get to the end result, which is great sex, it tells me a lot about your relationship.
I love that. Oh my goodness. So head on, just on it. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Dorit. It was so good speaking to you. And I really hope that people hear this and are like, okay, so I'm not so horrible after all. And now I just know how to live my life.
You're not crazy. Mm-mm.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you just want to talk about my podcast very quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So if this is interesting and you're like, ooh, I would like to learn more. So I am a podcaster too. My podcast is called Confident, Energized, and Sexy Mama. It's everywhere podcasts are available. So definitely find it, subscribe to it, and join the movement.
Yes, it's an awesome podcast. It is.
Yeah, and you've been on it too.
Oh, yeah.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.